Welcome everyone to the October 16th, 2025 Enforcement and Compounding Committee meeting. My name is Maria Serpa, chairperson of the committee. Before we convene, I'd like to remind everyone present that the board is a consumer protection agency charged with administering and enforcing pharmacy law. Where protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. As I facilitate this meeting, I will announce when we are accepting public comment. I've advised the meeting moderator to allot 3 minutes for each individual providing comments. Throughout the meeting, at appropriate times, we will begin public comments for individuals attending in person, followed by public comment by individuals participating via WebEx. I'll check in periodically to see if there's anybody in Sacramento. This approach is necessary to facilitate this meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to ask staff moderating the meeting to provide general instructions on the process for providing public comment via WebEx. Moderator?
This is the moderator. When we open up for public comment, members of the public on WebEx can click the raise hand icon at the bottom of their WebEx screen. Or if you're an audio-only participant, you can press *3 on your device to unmute or to raise your hand. We'll go in the order of comments received. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak with a 10-second warning, and at the end of your time, you will be muted, and we will move on to next individual requesting public comment.
Great, thank you. Good morning, members. Now I'd like to take a roll call to establish a quorum. Renee Barker.
Good morning, present. Licensee member present.
Thank you. Jeff Hughes.
Public member present.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Licensee member present.
Thank you. Ricardo Sanchez.
Present, public member.
Thank you. Nicole Tebow.
Licensee member present.
Great. Thank you, everyone. A quorum has been established. I ask you all participating today to be respectful with the work before the committee today. We encourage participation by members of the public throughout our meeting at appropriate times. The committee respectfully requests that comments are provided that are done so in a professional manner consistent with how the committee conducts its business. Before we move on to the next agenda item, I'd like to remind the committee members participating via WebEx to please remain visible on camera throughout the open portion of today's meeting. If you need to temporarily turn off your camera due to challenges with internet connectivity, please announce the reason for your non-appearance when you turn off your camera. Okay, first agenda item is public comment on items not on the agenda for future meetings. I now ask the moderator to open the line for individuals to provide the opportunity for public comment on items not on the agenda. You are not required to identify yourself, but may do so. I would like to remind everyone that the committee cannot take action on these items except to decide whether to place them on a future agenda. Accordingly, if your comment pertains to an item that's on today's agenda, please save your comments for the public comment period specific to that agendized item. Members, following public comments for this agenda item, I will ask you for comments on what items, if any, you would like to place on a future agenda. As a reminder, this agenda item is not meant to be a discussion, rather just an opportunity for members of the committee and members of the public to request consideration of an item for future placement on an agenda. At that time, discussion will take place. Are there any members in Sacramento, or any public members in Sacramento?
We do have public members in Sacramento.
Okay, thank you. So I'll continue to ask. Any public comment in Sacramento at this time?
No, there is no public comment in Sacramento at this time.
Great, thank you. Moderator, we're ready for public comment for individuals participating via WebEx.
All right, this is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can press *3 on your device to raise your hand. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Members, do you have any items that you want to bring up before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, Next agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the June 11th, 2025 Enforcement and Compounding Committee meeting. Attachment 1 to the meeting materials includes a copy of the draft minutes for the June 11th, 2025 meeting. Members, do you have any questions or comments on the draft minutes? I would also entertain a motion if you believe such action is appropriate.
Motion to accept the report.
Thank you, Ricardo.
I
Second?
second. This is
I didn't see who was that second, sorry.
sorry, it's Song. This is Song. Second.
Sung, okay, thank you, Sung. Sung second. With a motion and second on the floor, I will now open for discussion for public comment on the draft minutes. Is there any public comment in Sacramento?
No, there is not.
Okay, thank you. Now, moderator, we're ready for public comment for individuals participating via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment on WebEx at this time.
Great, thank you. Bringing the discussion back to the members, do you have any further comments? If not, I'll take the roll call vote. Renee Barker,
Yes.
Jeff Hughes,
Yes.
thank you. Sung Oh,
Yes.
Ricardo Sanchez,
Yes.
Nicole Tebow,
Yes.
and I vote yes, the motion passes. And just to be clear, the motion was projected on the screen. It wasn't read verbally, but we have it projected on the screen. Next item on the agenda 4, presentation by J.K. Fujimoto, Supervising Inspector, and discussion related to the board's outsourcing program. I see that J.K. has been promoted. Members, Senate Bill 1193 added Article 7.7 regarding outsourcing facilities to Chapter 9, Division 2 of the Business and Professions Code, which requires an outsourcing facility to be licensed by the board before doing any business in the state of California. Further requires that the board inspect outsourcing facility for compliance with all laws and regulations prior to the issuance of or annual renewal of the license. Some members of the committee may not be familiar with this license type. Board staff are offering to provide the committee with a presentation on the board's outsourcing program. I'd like to welcome Supervising Inspector Dr. J.K. Fujimoto to provide the committee with an overview of the outsourcing program. Dr. Fujimoto, I don't see you on camera. Are you here?
I am here.
Oh, there you are. Great. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Serpa. Thank you for the board for the opportunity here. Like you said, my name is JK. I'm the supervising inspector with the California State Board of Pharmacy. I oversee our outsourcing facility field inspection program. So today I'll present you an overview of the program, kind of what it is, how it's different from what you're used to in a traditional 503A pharmacy or compounding pharmacy, and how we regulate these facilities and inspect them on a day-to-day basis to ensure safety and compliance. Next slide, please. Awesome. So this explains what a 503B outsourcing facility is. The Drug Quality and Security Act define an outsourcing facility as a facility located at one geographic location or address that compounds sterile drugs and has chosen to register as a 503B and complies with all other requirements outlined in Section 503B of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. One of the key points is that drugs made in a 503B outsourcing facility, they can qualify for certain exemptions from the FDA drug approval process, such as they don't have to have the same labeling or directions for use requirements the same way that you would expect commercial drugs to have. So Using a simple example, an antibiotic would normally have some sort of weight-based dosing for a specific indication or a specific condition. This is not normally part of a 503B's product or labeling requirement. However, these facilities are not exempt from current good manufacturing practices. I'll refer to this as CGMPs. So the outsourcing facilities, they must produce their product and they must maintain really strict production standards that apply to drug manufacturers that you may be familiar with very few exceptions. In addition, these outsourcing facilities are subject to inspection by the FDA on what they refer to as a risk-based schedule. And they do have to meet specific conditions and reporting requirements, such as the outsourcing facilities are required to report certain adverse events to the FDA, as well as a detailed catalog of the products and the quantity in which they make. And some of this information can aid the FDA in determining risk for that organization. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we'll compare a 503A compounding pharmacy with a 503B outsourcing facility and how they are a little bit different. So 503A pharmacies are normally designed to service individual patients. They normally require patient-specific prescriptions, which means that batching is a less common activity in these pharmacies. These pharmacies are regulated primarily by the state boards of pharmacies, and they generally follow, for sterile compounding, they would normally follow USP 797, along with any applicable state regulations, such as our California Code of Regulations. Their operations are generally smaller in scale and scope, with a primary focus on meeting the immediate needs of individualized patients. And in contrast, 503B outsourcing facilities, they operate on a normally much larger scale. They don't require a patient-specific prescription, but they can still do patient-specific prescriptions. And this makes batching the observed norm in these type of operations. Because of the broader scope, they're regulated not only by state boards of pharmacies, but by the FDA as well. So discussed earlier, their regulatory expectation is compliance with CGMP, or current good manufacturing practices, specifically 21 CFR parts 210 and 211. So the CFR stands for Code of Federal Regulations. These requirements are far more stringent, commensurate with their higher risks associated with the widespread distribution of their products, the large batch sizes, and potentially longer beyond use dates or expiration dates. Next slide, please. So on this slide, let's talk about a little bit about what they normally compound. And so as you can see here, a lot of the dosage forms and the presentations look very similar to what you might see in a 503A compounding pharmacy. There is a natural emphasis on sterile products, as in order to qualify for exemptions of 503B, you must be engaged in sterile compounding, and you're not eligible for the exemptions if you're solely a non-sterile compounder. But again, the largest differences that we observe is the scale, the scope, and the methods in which these products are produced. Next slide, please. So what does a typical 503B outsourcing facility look like? I'll do my best to try and paint a picture here of it and try and explain to you it verbally. But what a 503B kind of looks like or doesn't look like is, unlike a retail pharmacy, these facilities are typically not open to the public. They tend to be much larger operations, ranging from a few tens of thousands of square feet to facilities even greater than 750,000 square feet. Many include multiple structures or specialized areas, such as warehousing, laboratories, distribution centers, production areas. Their infrastructure tends to be highly robust. They have advanced critical utility systems such as HVAC, with humidification and dehumidification processes with other kind of advanced climate control options. We see specialized process gases that are used in production processes or laboratory processes, such as compressed air, nitrogen, helium, argon. And we also see producers, they have advanced water systems at times, which have the capability to produce water of pharmaceutical quality. So this may include USP purified water or water for injection, and this water is used for a multitude of purposes: components preparation, formulation, cleaning. So they have their ability to produce their own pharmaceutical water. The production capabilities, depending on the operation or depending on the product, we see a really broad range of production capabilities, all the way down to a fully manual process, all the way to a fully autonomous process or an automated process where there's very little requirement for the human interventions or human inputs on these automated processes. The batch sizes range from anywhere from the low hundreds to batch sizes of greater than 100,000 units. So what we see is what we're used to as batch sizes of less than 250 are very atypical in this space. And finally, the distribution from these facilities tends to be nationwide. All of our currently licensed 503B facilities are multi-state licensed, and they do ship product through to multiple states, typically all around the country. And while some of the products are sold in individual units or eaches, many of the products are sold in case quantities, pallet quantities, and we've even seen whole freight or truckload quantities being sold at times. Next slide, please. So in contrast, what you might see in a pharmacy or a traditional pharmacy, where the pharmacist in charge is primarily responsible for compliance, 503B outsourcing facility tends to have a very different organizational structure. And I would say one of the most important tenets of a 503B organizational structure is the organizational separation of the quality assurance or the quality control unit from the production or the operational unit. So this independence between one another really helped to provide the proper oversight and the ability to make independent decisions on either side, to accept or reject a batch or a process. And so this really ensures that each batch of drug product undergoes the proper scrutiny with multiple layers of review. The staffing in these facilities tends to be really highly specialized. It's common to see individuals with advanced degrees such as PhDs, master's degrees, PharmDs, or other clinicians with professional expertise in things like microbiology, chemistry, engineering, pharmaceutical manufacturing. Many of these team members bring robust backgrounds from the pharmaceutical industry or other regulated industries that require a high level of scrutiny. Next slide, please. So let's talk, what role kind of do we see pharmacists play in 503B outsourcing facilities? And I'll start with the requirements. So under the Compounding Quality Act, for a 503B to qualify for its exemptions, drugs must be compounded by or under the direct supervision of a licensed pharmacist. Now, what's unique here is how adaptable pharmacists have been within this environment. So beyond the direct compounding and oversight, we see pharmacists contributing across organizations in various capacities. So we've seen pharmacists play roles in senior management roles, such as CEOs, VPs, directors. Pharmacovigilance is often led by a pharmacist or a team of pharmacists, and at times technicians as well. And pharmacists have been successful in roles in both production and quality management positions. And of course, we also have the familiar roles of the dispensing and clinical activities that pharmacists continue to participate in. So while overall to play a central role in ensuring
Dr. Fujimoto, you froze there for a second, so we lost about 30 seconds of your talk.
Okay. Do you want me to restart on this slide?
Just the dispensing and clinical role. That's where you were.
Okay. Okay, I apologize. So the dispensing, so we continue to see pharmacists play, their traditional role in terms of dispensing and clinical services to clients of 503Bs. So overall, while the structure of a 503B looks quite different than a regular pharmacist, we continue to see pharmacists play a central role within these organizations to ensure compliance, quality, and leadership. Thank you. So this slide highlights the differences in the licensure and registration requirements of a 503A compounding pharmacy and a 503B outsourcing facility. So we'll start with what we're familiar with, starting with the 503A pharmacies. They do not currently register with the FDA. Instead, their application for licensure is reviewed and approved by the State Board of Pharmacy. The license must be renewed annually. And if the pharmacy performs sterile compounding, they have their adjunct sterile license, and the renewals are issued following an annual inspection. While variable at times, most inspections in these pharmacies require the inspector to be physically on site for no more than one business day, and these are normally conducted by one inspector. Now, for a 503B outsourcing facilities, the requirements are a bit more extensive. They do require registration for with the FDA on an annual basis. And although the registration itself doesn't require any pre-approval inspection on behalf of the FDA inspections are done on a risk-based schedule, typically done every 2 to 3 years, I would say. Like 503As, they must also apply for licensure through the State Board of Pharmacy. And if it's issued following a successful inspection, that license is renewed following an annual inspection. And these inspections tend to be much longer in duration and scope. And these usually last about 3 business days, conducted by 2 inspectors. Okay, next slide, please. So the first outsourcing facilities started registering with the FDA in December of 2013. And the first facilities licensed by the California board was in June of 2017, following the approval of SB 1193 in 2016, which was effective January 1 of 2017. So this is current as of late August of this year. So the current demographics of outsourcing facilities include, we have 92 outsourcing facilities that are registered with the FDA as of August of this year. And of those 92 facilities, we have 3 licensed locations within the state of California, and we have 20 licensed locations located outside of the state of California. So these would be our non-resident outsourcing facilities. Of those 92 that are registered nationwide, approximately 30 of those are newly registered locations in 2024 or 2025. And kind of as mentioned before, the FDA puts very limited restrictions on the registration process itself. And so many of these firms that are registered in 24 or 25, a lot of them, I understand them to be in a pre-operational state, meaning they're not quite ready to distribute to patients or they haven't distributed to patients yet. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so now that we've discussed some of the differences between a 503A compounding pharmacy and a 503B outsourcing facility, as well as their current license registration process, I'd like to spend a few minutes here on kind of explaining how the Code of Federal Regulations, or the CFR, and the CGMP requirements apply to outsourcing facilities and kind of how these mechanics work. So as a general consideration, outsourcers are required to follow the relevant parts of 21 CFR Parts 210 and 211, which describe the current good manufacturing practices. Oftentimes, the CFR may cover a broad range of topics or applications, and the FDA at times will utilize what's called guidance for industry documents to better clarify the CFR requirements or to describe their current thinking on the topic. This is largely done, to my understanding, to support the C in the CGMP, meaning the current. So this is utilized to allow for regulatory flexibility, while at the same time not stifling scientific innovation or public need. So one example that you may remember not too long ago was we had the FDA had the temporary policy for preparation of certain alcohol-based hand sanitizer products during the public health emergency or COVID-19. That guidance has since been withdrawn, but this was largely done to address kind of the immediate public need for those alcohol-based hand sanitizer products, while also placing some controls over the production and labeling of those products to promote safety in the interim. So what I plan to go through next is an example of a specific CFR code, 211.113B, which is control of microbial contamination. And so this CFR code reads, appropriate written procedures designed to prevent microbial contamination of drug products purporting to be sterile shall be established and followed. Such procedures include validation of all aseptic and sterilization processes. So the natural question, or what you might ask, is how does one know what appropriate is, or what is kind of the regulatory expectation here? So we'll go through kind of how this works. Next slide, please. Awesome. So we'll go over how this one CFR code might apply to a range of different topics to be considered for a sterile drug producer. There is a relevant guidance document available, and that guidance document is FDA Guidance for Industry, Current Good Manufacturing Practice, Guidance for Human Drug Compounding Outsourcing Facilities under Section 503B of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, Draft Guidance January 2020, Revision 2. So here we'll go over three different but somewhat related topics of how CFR 211.113 could apply. So we'll start with facility design. So water used as cleaning or a rinsing agent for any equipment or utensils that will not be subsequently disinfected or sterilized and dehydrated must be sterile. So if you had a sterile vial, for example, and you wanted to rinse or clean that vial before use, and you use a non-sterile water source or some sort of potable water source, that would be detrimental to a sterile process. You would only want, kind of going back to our compounding knowledge, you would only want that water to be sterile in this instance. Okay, so next, the environmental and personnel monitoring. And by the way, the italicized language here is the language from the guidance document. So in total, this guidance document cites 211.113B. This specific CFR code is referenced 21 times in this guidance document. So this is a very a very simplistic example of how the guidance documents helps to clarify the CFR. So environmental and personnel monitoring. So 21 CFR 21142 C10.4 requires establishing a system for monitoring environmental conditions in aseptic processing areas. And 211.113B practices and gowning to be both acceptable and qualified for operations they performed. For example, gowning procedures should ensure there is no exposed skin on personnel involved in any production activities or that can directly affect the ISO 5 area. So humans are generally understood to be the most common vector of microbial contamination to a sterile drug producer. So therefore, the gowning practices need to be robust, while the environment itself also needs to be controlled. Microbial growth typically follows some sort of logarithmic pattern where, one bacterial colony turns into 10, and then 10 turns into 100, and so on. So a higher operating temperature, humidity, and time can promote, the microbial proliferation. So going back to our original CFR code of appropriate, if the procedures allowed for, say, exposed skin in these ISO 5 areas, that would then be deemed inappropriate. Components. Components over the source and quality of components are required. When producing sterile drugs, one aspect of such controls is the consideration of whether the incoming components are non-sterile. So if we use the same vial example, if we wanted to fill a vial, and if we receive that vial as a non-sterile vial, there has to be some sort of validated, reliable process in which that vial can be washed, rinsed, sterilized, and depyrogenated. So in this example, or if any of these examples, if we saw a deviation from the requirements here, CFR 211.113 would be cited on the inspection report. Next slide, please. So post-implementation of the outsourcing facility inspection program, I'm quite proud of the successes that we've had in the program, and I'm honestly proud of the staff and also the licensees that participate in it on a day-to-day basis. Our licensees have worked hard to meet the high standards of a 503B outsourcing facility, and I'd like to just share a few examples of some of the successes we've had with the program. So first and foremost, we've maintained a high level of expectation of compounded products provided to California patients and prescribers. Our current regulations place strong emphasis on CGMP requirements, and we currently have a team of 3 dedicated inspectors who've undergone extensive training to learn CGMP topics necessary to conduct inspections. This training includes training from the FDA, USP, and other industry resources to gain expertise. I can confidently say our program oversees and has oversight of well north of 100 million dosage units annually. We've facilitated great working relationships with our licensees, and we've helped to optimize drug supply during shortages during the COVID-19 pandemic, and even currently with some of the drug shortages. So we have regular contact with most of the licensees throughout the year due to multiple touch points in between inspection cycles. In the case of the pandemic, this allowed for expeditious communication and providing information to end users of the 503B products to understand the product catalog of common shortage items as a result of the pandemic. For a period of time, the board made available on its websites firms that were producing the commonly shortage items during that time, and give them direction on how they might be able to source it. And one of the unintentional benefits, I would say, of our outsourcing program in California is we've served as the framework for several other state boards of pharmacy in which they've built their outsourcing facility program on as well. So most recently in August of this year of 2025, the FDA, they host an annual Compounding Center of Excellence Conference, which is a stakeholder conference, which has open enrollment to anyone interested in compounding quality. And the California inspection process was repeatedly mentioned as a useful data point for licensees, other state boards of pharmacy, as well as the FDA. Just one example is the Virginia State Board of Pharmacy. They placed equivalent utility to our inspection reports as they do with the FDA inspection reports for the purposes of their license renewal process. A recent Virginia guidance document, specifically 110-38, states in part, if the facility has not been inspected by the FDA within the required timeframe, outsourcing facility CGMP inspections from the California Board of Pharmacy would be deemed an acceptable alternative. Next slide, please. So this slide outlines some of the key challenges faced by the board's outsourcing facility program, along with some of the steps we've taken to mitigate them. So first, inspections require a significant amount of time and travel. These facilities are large and inspections must be carefully coordinated, which demands advanced planning. So to address this, we schedule our inspections well in advance, particularly for our renewal inspections. And we've recently updated our fee structure as of January of this year to align with the resources to maintain the program. We also have an open inspector position dedicated to this role, which we're working to fill. And while planning does agreeably help with this process, we do tend to be a little bit less flexible than most to accommodate last-minute inspections or other atypical events. As we saw kind of on our demographics, most of our locations are located out of state. Second, the level of effort needed for these inspections is substantial. Outsourcing facilities have complex quality systems, so inspections require more hours and specialized knowledge. To mitigate this, we've fostered specialization within our current inspectors, which allows for repetition and inspectors to build expertise focused on these types of facilities, which overall kind of improves our efficiency and inspection quality. In addition, inspections are normally conducted in groups of two inspectors, which helps foster the robust application of knowledge as well as the transfer of knowledge between inspectors as well. Third, the CGMP operations for which we inspect, they're required to generate and maintain really large data sets and records associated with the production and process controls, as well as the quality system. So to ensure, we get a thorough review of the records, we typically do request a data set of records approximately 6 to 8 weeks ahead of our planned inspection. And we review those for probably approximately 2 weeks prior to visiting. And so after we review those documents, they normally require additional records requests, and that requires us to consider more records or review additional documents. And finally, our inspections, they often occur asynchronously with the FDA and other state boards of pharmacy or other regulatory agencies such as the DEA, meaning that regulatory activities often happen in between inspections. So to manage this, we use a dedicated email address to triage communications and allocate resources in a way that promotes patient safety. Next slide, please. So post-implementation of the outsourcing program, staff does believe there are a few areas within our current pharmacy law that could benefit from harmonization with current FDA requirements for clarification purposes. For example, it might be beneficial to align our address requirements of an outsourcer in statute to current FDA requirements. So we look forward to the board's consideration and dialogue to take any action on any such proposals. But I'll end here and really thank you guys for the opportunity to speak about the outsourcing program. I want to thank Executive Officer Ann Sodergren for her leadership of the program, as well as the countless number of licensees and board staff who participated in it on a day-to-day basis. So I'm happy to receive any feedback you might have or questions that you might have at this time.
Great. Thank you very much for this educational presentation. I truly appreciate your efforts and the efforts of your inspectors. I'd like to commend you and your staff for the in-depth inspection process that has been implemented for our outsourcers. It is truly tremendous effort that's made by all of your staff. It seems like we do have some areas of opportunity for the future for possible changes in the law that may be appropriate for us to address in a future committee meeting. So this is kind of an introduction to the topic. Members, do you have any questions or comments for Dr. Fujimoto, JK? Ooh, lots of hands. Let's start with Renee Barker.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It is commendable, and I'm also proud of California for having the outsourcing facility inspections. I work in a hospital pharmacy. This is my bread and butter, if you will. So having, knowing that there's a more local inspection and licensing in addition to the FDA licensing is great, and it's challenging. So I also, for in a hospital setting, accreditation standards require that you also make you have eyes on facilities. So I've gone to multiple, and me, myself, and I, and so that it's not a completely robust. This is me following FDA, following California board inspectors, or California inspectors, and these places are complex, and it's just to get some sense right after what happened in 2010. So I just want to say thanks, and I did want to, because I've been wanting to say this. You mentioned about the compounding quality conference, the annual FDA conference. So I attend that also virtually. And in addition to maybe some of the comments that you mentioned, I did want to say that you mentioned about state boards of pharmacy and how they have kind of tailored their inspection programs, gotten best practices from California, but also there were several attendees who were from like large health systems around the country who don't have state boards of pharmacy who do inspections. And I wrote down kind of some during the conference. I was like, oh, I have to write this down. Just was that California goes on site for licensing inspections, and it's very commendable. And they said, and we use those, right? So that's the only other licensing they look for, right? And then another large health system said, California Board of Pharmacy does such a good job that we will look for their report when assessing 503A and B. So, just knowing that is a standard used across the country as a benefit. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you for your feedback.
I think Dr. O was next hand.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair Serpa. Thank you, Dr. Fujimoto. Just want to thank you guys for the work you do. I appreciate, I know how much work goes into it, all the travels. I'm going to just ask one naive question, and forgiving in advance, and maybe for the education of members. Can you just talk about what are the things that the 503B outsourcers can compound or produce or manufacture, whatever we want to call it? Like, are they, just kind of, I guess that's a broad question.
Yeah, I think I understand your question. So the 503B outsourcing facilities, they have a similar, I'll call it, rule set as 503As on things they can compound and things they can't compound. So for example, the 503B they do have a bulk drug substance list, similar to what a 503A pharmacy has, where they have the category 1, 2, and 3 bulk drug substances. I don't think I'll go into all the details on that. So those, they have a set of APIs, or active pharmaceutical ingredients, that they can kind of work with. They can participate in drug shortage compounding. So we've seen a lot of participation in drug shortage compounding, and they can also participate in certain repackaging activities also. So we've seen them do repackaging activities where they help extend the drug product supply that may be in shortage by doing some repackaging activities, as well as repackaging products in presentations that are more usable by the end users. And those are typically the types of products that they're engaged in, is products that are on the bulk drug substance list, products that are in drug shortage, and other repackaging activities. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yes.
And I think just to add, I think to make it easier for people who are not familiar with outsourcers, my background is acute care. Hospitals and health systems commonly use outsourcing facilities to receive antibiotics, cardiac drips, controlled substance drips. Many products are received from the outsourcing facilities, such that help with shortages, but also that's common business practice in many facilities now too. So I'm not sure, Son, if you were asking for some specifics. The categories of medications that are received by California patients is a large catalog.
Thank
Did
you.
you want to add anything, Dr. Fujimoto or JK? Sorry, I jumped into your answer.
Yeah, thanks for the commentary, and I guess kind of building off your topic too, is oftentimes the 503B products are advantageous to the hospital systems or to the end users, because they oftentimes we have kind of there's a tenet within CGMP where quality needs to be built into the system of the manufacturing or the compounding process, and that you can't simply test it into the system at the very end and just verify that you got lucky. So there's a high level of quality assurance that comes with an outsourcing facility's product. The products oftentimes have longer beyond use dates or expiry dates than what a hospital might be able to place on their products. So that helps free up labor for hospital systems, and the presentations in which they make it. Although maybe a hospital could potentially make it themselves, the presentations that are provided, by our outsourcers are oftentimes a more usable presentation. Or, for example, often a lot of our 503B products, they put RFID chips in their products, and that service is useful to some of our end users.
Thank you. Jeff, I see you had your hands up also. Jeff?
Were you calling on me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw your hand was up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Dr. JK for the presentation. As a public member, these kinds of hand-holding, walking us through the process, and seeing the involvement that you guys have as inspectors and your hard work. It's very helpful for me as a public member. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the feedback.
Members, any other comments before we go to public comment? Okay. Before we begin, just a reminder, public comment is not meant to be a question and answer session, rather an opportunity to provide comments on the presentation. Dr. Fujimoto, you're under no obligation to answer questions. We'll begin with public comment in Sacramento. Is there any comment in Sacramento?
None in Sacramento.
Great, thank you. Moderator, we're ready for public comment via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to public comment on this item, please click that that raised hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. And it looks like we have a request from Stephen Gray. Stephen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you very much. I want to comment, it was an excellent presentation, very professionally done and very comprehensive and very exciting and complimentary to California and the Board of Pharmacy. Some of you may not realize, but California was the leader in 503B type facilities way back in the 1980s. There was no such category under FDA law, but Kaiser Permanente in Downey, California opened up such a facility in 1980 and produced TPN for all of its hospitals in Southern California. And I stress that not only were done safer because it's done under CGAMP instead of being manually compounded one at a time, but it was also very much cost saving to the public through cost saving in hospitals for the products, et cetera. So there is a leadership here that California can be very proud of. All of the products made in that facility were registered with the FDA. They were open to surprise inspections and by the FDA on a regular basis. And all of the products had to have not only the sterility and safety built in, as Dr. Fujimoto mentioned, but all had to be tested on a batch basis. The batch process of 500 or more liters at a time allowed very safe, very economical products to be delivered to hospitals throughout Southern California from a centralized location. So thank you again for the presentation, and thank you very much for all the effort and professionalism that is put into the program. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Next I have Melanie Horn, and Melanie, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Good morning, board members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to hear the presentation regarding 503B inspections through the board. I also strongly echo the sentiments by Stephen Gray and everyone on the board that it was an excellent presentation. And I very much appreciate hearing about the process that the board goes through to do those inspections. I also just want to comment that I heard a little bit of an opportunity from Dr. JK, that there would be some possibility of some regulatory changes in our board that may support the difference between 503B compounding in our compounding regulations in CCR. I find that a very interesting how we're able to have them licensed through our Board of Pharmacy using our USP-based information that can be a little more tailored to what our individual members do in 503A compounding. So I'm very interested to hear where that conversation and this presentation takes the enforcement committee, if there is some open discussion with the regulators and how to better clarify. I think as 503A is in the hospital, there can be some labeling requirements around compounding that become slightly confusing around rates and other information that if we're held to that standard as a 503A for all of our compounds in our hospital to meet those requirements, can be a little bit on the line of gray. So anyway, I just find it a very interesting topic. I look forward to the board's further discussion around the enforcement of 503Bs and how the regulatory process could have a conversation with those inspectors to see if there are some delineations in the board language. So thank you so much for the presentation.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Members, any final comments? Seeing none, JK, thank you again for the comprehensive presentation. I look forward to our further discussion at future board meetings. Next agenda item is, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see yours. Thank you, JK. Next agenda item is number 5, presentation by Julie Ansell, Deputy Executive Officer, and discussion related to duty to consult, including possible discussion of California Code of Regulations Title 16, 1707.2. As you may recall, at the July 2024 Enforcement and Compounding meeting, Strategic Goal 2.11 was added to the board's strategic plan for 2022 to 26. New Strategic Goal 2.11 states, enhance patient consultation compliance by evaluating barriers to consultation to provide patient education and reduce medication errors. This morning, the board staff will provide presentation on the duty to consult. After the presentation, the committee will have an opportunity to discuss whether the board's current consultation requirements remain appropriate and consider what barriers exist to pharmacist-provided consultation. The committee may want to evaluate opportunities to improve patient understanding of medications, reduce medication errors, and best practices on educating patients on their medications so that they are taken safely and effectively. In seeking to better understand the current barriers to consultation, it may be particularly helpful for the committee to receive feedback from the regulated public. So I'm very interested in public comment on this area. I'd like to welcome Deputy Executive Officer Julie Ansell to provide the committee on the presentation on duty to consult. Julie, I see you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Serpa, and thank you to the committee for the opportunity to talk about patient consultation today. Next slide, please. So I don't think my presentation is going to be quite as technical as JK, but I think it will spark some interesting conversation amongst the board as well as the regulated public. So let's get going. So we all know pharmacists do have a duty to consult. It really is the best opportunity for patients to get to know their pharmacists and for pharmacists to get to know their patients and for the pharmacist to provide education to the patient about their medications. Next slide. There's a lot of value inherent in patient consultation, including it provides a patient with information on common side effects, potential food and drug interactions of medications, and consultation addresses potential allergies to medication. It provides the patient with opportunity to ask questions of the pharmacist, decreases the chances of a medication error from occurring, and the pharmacist is really the last line of defense in preventing medication errors from occurring. Consultation is that mechanism to prevent the wrong medication from being dispensed to a patient. It improves medication adherence, medication management, and health outcomes for patients. Next slide, please. So I want to take a moment just to review the relevant law that speaks to the duty to consult. California Code of Regulations 1707.2 provides that a pharmacist shall provide oral consultation to a patient under specified conditions, including upon request, whenever the pharmacist deems it necessary based on their professional judgment, whenever a prescription has not been previously dispensed to a patient, new prescription, and when a drug previously dispensed has been changed in terms of the dosage, strength, or directions. Next slide, please. Additionally, the regulation also speaks to the requirement to provide that consultation to a patient who is not present, including mail order or delivered prescriptions. The regulation states that a pharmacy shall ensure the patient receives a notice of the right to request consultation when the patient or the agent is not present, or again, when the medication is mailed or delivered. The pharmacy shall ensure the patient receives the hours, the phone number of the pharmacy to obtain consultation on that notice. The regulation also provides timeframes on how quickly the pharmacist shall be available by phone, how many days a week the pharmacist shall be available, and the number of hours per week of availability. Next slide, please. So this next slide shows us the number of investigations that were conducted by board inspectors where there was a violation of patient consultation that was substantiated over the past 3 years. So you can see over the past 3 years, we're in about medium 43 to 47 investigations where there was a violation of patient consultation seen in a specific fiscal year. In some of these investigations, there may have been more than one section of CCR 1707.2 duty to consult that was violated by the licensee, but for the purpose of reporting, we're displaying numbers of investigation where there is at least one violation of patient consultation. These investigations might be a result of a complaint that was submitted to the board or possibly a result of an inspection. So when we say violation, what are we talking about? A violation means that a licensee has not met the requirements of pharmacy law and they are not compliant with pharmacy law. But what we need to take into account when we're looking at a violation and the behavior is that there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum of behavior across a violation spectrum. It can result in a variety of different outcomes dependent on the behavior. And we're going to talk through some examples of violations in the next slide, and also talk through some outcomes of investigations as well. So these next couple of slides show examples of behavior, actual things that have happened in pharmacies where there was a consultation violation. In the first example, we have multiple examples of investigations here at the board where the pharmacy did fail to provide consultation on a new prescription. Sometimes the board learns of this through a patient complaint, a public complaint coming into the board, and then an investigation is conducted. There are other times when the inspector is conducting an inspection and the inspector actually observes that consultation has not been provided to a patient that was required. Failing to provide that consultation on a new prescription is a violation. And on the spectrum, this would be considered a little bit more serious because that patient is walking away, not getting information about their medication. In the second example, this was a technician. They told the patient that if she wanted to speak with a pharmacist, she could go and wait at the consultation window. The patient then walked over to the consultation window, but the technician never called the pharmacist over for that consultation. And the patient then left without that consultation being received on 2 new prescriptions. Again, a little bit more serious as the patient is walking away without receiving that important information about their new prescriptions. In this third example, consultation was not provided on a drug that was previously dispensed, but the directions had changed. Again, the patient is leaving the pharmacy without the required consultation from the pharmacist. You might consider maybe this is a little less egregious because the patient has taken that medication before, and hopefully they do know what it is for before they walked away. But again, they didn't get that consultation on the new directions of that medication. So again, failing to provide that consultation on those new directions is again a violation of pharmacy law. Next slide, please. So the next example is kind of twofold. Here we had a pharmacy that failed to provide consultation on a new prescription for a suspension, and the suspension needed to be reconstituted. It was handed to the patient or the agent as a powder, and if the consultation had occurred, it's possible it would have been discovered that the medication had not been reconstituted prior to giving it to the patient. Again, fairly serious, not great for the patient. Here again, we have a consultation violation coupled with a medication error. The next example, number 5, is a pharmacy was providing delivery service via FedEx and did not have a pharmacist available within an average of 10 minutes over the phone to speak with the patient or to schedule that callback within 1 business hour for the patient that in need of that consultation. And this inability to reach the pharmacist within that required time frame is not, again, compliant with the regulation. And finally, we have multiple examples where we have investigations where the pharmacy fails to provide that notice of the right to consultation on mail-ordered or delivered prescriptions. Additionally, we find pharmacies who provide the notice, but the notice is inadequate in some way. It doesn't meet all the requirements of the regulation. It's lacking a required element. For example, maybe the phone number is missing, right? Then how do you call the pharmacy if there's no phone number? There may be no hours listed on the notice, or the hours of operation are inadequate to the requirements. Might be seen as, a little bit less egregious on the spectrum, but again, we're not getting the patient the information they need in order to get that consultation. Next slide, please. So we have the violations, consultation violation, we have examples. What can the outcome of these examples be? And so I wanted to just give a couple I know we had talked in a couple, a board meeting or two before, and I believe one of the board members and or a committee member had asked to give more like concrete examples of what the outcomes can be of an investigation. So I want to go through a little bit of that. When we substantiate a violation, right, or we substantiate, in this case, a violation of patient consultation, where we don't have compliance with pharmacy law, there's multiple possible outcomes of the investigation. The board can choose first to take no action. The board can substantiate a violation, but they chose to take no action on that violation. Another manner we could close an investigation is through education. We do that a lot in terms of subject educated, where the board educates the licensee versus taking another possible action. The behavior may be less egregious, something we feel like the licensee can learn from. And it's possibly the first violation and doesn't need to rise to the manner of or the level of a administrative action or formal discipline. So then when I say administrative action, what are we talking about? That kind of starts going up the ladder of different types of outcomes of these investigations. We could issue a letter of admonishment. This is the lowest form of administrative action that can be taken on a substantiated violation. Alternatively, we can issue a citation without a fine. Again, the kind of next step of that ladder of administrative actions that might be taken by the board in response to a violation. We can also issue a citation with a fine, which is again an administrative action where the underlying conduct might be a bit more serious than a letter than when we would issue a letter of admonishment or a citation without a fine. With a fine, it's possible the licensee had past histories with us. There was something in the previous history, and that kind of took it to another level of having to go with a citation with a fine from the board. Finally, the board has the option to refer a matter to the Attorney General's office to take discipline on a license. And in general, these are more egregious matters where the board is looking to restrict or revoke a license because of the underlying conduct. And if a violation of patient consultation were referred to the AG in this example, there's likely other egregious violations. Typically, we wouldn't necessarily just send a consultation violation to the AG. I think it could be possible if we had a long history of no consultation at a pharmacy, we might refer to the AG, but typically it's got other violations within that investigation where it rises to that level of formal discipline. Sorry, I keep hitting the microphone. Next slide, please. So getting back to consultation, kind of pulling it back, we know it's an important part of patient care at a pharmacy, and there are barriers to patient consultation though. I think we can characterize these barriers by pharmacist-related barriers, patient-related barriers to consultation, and also system-related barriers to consultation. So let's talk through some of those examples. So pharmacist-related barriers. There could be employee burnout or stress. High stress can reduce the diligence and the thoroughness of a pharmacy employee. It may create a lack of attentiveness amongst employees. There's also time constraints, right? Pharmacists may not have enough time during the workday for meaningful patient interaction for a variety of reasons. And this may put limits on the amount of time that a pharmacist can actually spend with a patient. Next slide, please. There are patient barriers to consultation. Patients may have privacy concerns. They may feel uncomfortable or embarrassed about discussing sensitive issues in public, or possibly the pharmacy space is small and inadequate for private consultation, and it may discourage an in-depth and sensitive conversation or discussion. This limited access or an adequate space for consultation, I think, could also be characterized as an environmental constraint or even an environmental barrier. A patient might just simply be impatient, right? We all have busy lives. We're in a rush. We don't want to wait around, right? And we may not understand what that value is of patient consultation. We also have a patient perception or awareness. It could be a factor. A patient maybe doesn't know that they're entitled to consultation. They may not understand the benefits of it. And the patient may be told by the pharmacy, well, consultation is necessary. Please, come discuss this with the pharmacist. But then they decide to decline. The patient declines the opportunity for that consultation, to receive that consultation. There are also language barriers. or it's possible that a patient has a difficult time understanding, complex medical terminology. Next slide, please. So system-related barriers could include workflow issues where a non-pharmacist employee could be possibly screening for consultation during the workflow, asking questions such as, would you like to speak with the pharmacist, or do you have questions for the pharmacist, versus that affirmative, the pharmacist will speak to you now, or the pharmacist needs to speak to you about your medication. And then directing that patient to the consultation area and calling the pharmacist over. Clerks and technicians may be giving the patient the option to speak with the pharmacist versus the clerk or technician saying you must speak with that pharmacist. There may be lack of training on the part of a pharmacy on consultation policies and procedures provided to pharmacy employees. Another system-related barrier is workload. A pharmacy might be really busy. High prescription volume, staffing constraints, lack of staffing, all these issues may reduce the time available for meaningful consultation. And there may be pressure within the pharmacy to fill prescriptions quickly, and therefore maybe employees are prioritizing speed over patient interaction. I think these examples that I'm talking about are just some. I'm certain they are not an exhaustive list, but just wanted to kind of put a little bit of that out there. Next slide, please. So the board has laws and regs in place to assist in breaking down some barriers, and the board really supports patient interaction with a pharmacist to facilitate consultation. The laws and regs are in place to ensure patients actually receive consultation and that the consultation is meaningful for the patient. Next slide, please. Some actions by the board that support patient consultation include the board recently updated its notice to consumer poster, which encourages patients to speak with their pharmacist, informs patients that they have a right to speak with their pharmacist about their medication. We have our point to our language notice, helping patients identify the language they speak so they obtain information in their own language about their medication. We have the requirement for the pharmacy to make available interpretive services upon request, and that the pharmacy must have policies and procedures on these interpretive services. There's the availability to request translated directions upon request. Of course, we talked about before the requirement of the written notice of consultation on mail ordered and delivered prescriptions, as discussed earlier. And then, of course, the entire consultation reg that we have that we discussed throughout the presentation. Next slide, please. So this concludes the slides I've prepared today. I really look forward to the discussion on patient consultation from the board and hearing feedback from the regulated public on the topic. And I just really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. That was a great overview. Members, do you have any questions or comments on the presentation or possible opportunities to improve patient understanding of medications? I'm especially interested in what the board members and the regulated public have to share about best practices with respect to patient consultation. The board's goal is that licensees have the tools and the processes in place to provide timely patient consultation in accordance with the law. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on how to enhance and ensure consultation compliance. I think the first hand I saw up was Ricardo. Ricardo,
Yeah.
did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a question. I didn't see my little hand thing go up, but let me put that down here. My question is basically, I know we have admin cases and I know how that works, but on the criminal type cases or something that would, reach that level where somebody steals a large quantity of Oxycontins or whatever, we've had those cases and are referred to the Attorney General's office. Do we ever follow up if any of those are pursued criminally? And if so, how many do we refer every year? Do we have a count of those?
So Ricardo, that's a really good question, but probably for a different agenda item. This is about consultation and patient interactions with pharmacists.
Okay. But
I think you could ask that question offline to board staff, but we did discuss it when we went through the enforcement process a couple of meetings ago, but sorry about that.
Okay,
Dr.
no
O?
Thank you, Chair Serpa. I have a lot to talk about, but I'm just gonna, I think, first, I'm just gonna make a global statement. If we can figure out a way for pharmacists to be compensated for consultations provided, I am confident that we would never have this issue of pharmacists not providing consultations, or the businesses are going to be very motivated. And, I do hope that with the pharmacists being able to be compensated for services with AB 317, I do hope that there are ways for pharmacies out there to be starting a way to be compensated for consultation services. That's just my global statement. So one thing that I want to talk about is I really hope we can figure out, I know we're not looking at the text of the regulation. I'm sure we will open that up in the subsequent meetings. I do want us to, there's going to be a lot of talk of AI, and I'm not the one that's proposing or proponents of AI taking over consultation at all. But I do want there to be more innovative ways and more explicit allowance for proactive consultation and allowance for us to be able to reaching out to patient. And I think that the way that it's currently written, our regulation, I don't think that the board would enforce anyone who provided proactive consultation. And if they left the pharmacy, I don't think that we would ever enforce those. But in technical terms, I think proactive consultations are not technically allowed. And I don't want there to be any accidental violations of our regulation. I want there to be an explicit allowance for proactive consultations, which I think is actually the best way to do it. And so because we are all extremely challenged, especially in an outpatient pharmacy, within open door pharmacies, right? And I do think that there are still a discrepancy between an open door pharmacy and closed door pharmacy in terms of the regulatory rigor and the requirements that are expected of a pharmacist to be able to provide these consultations. If you really think about it, in a sense that if you're open door pharmacy, you have to really go out there to provide consultation. But if you're a closed door pharmacy, you have to just provide a little paper. Or when you mail us something, you just provide a piece of notice to consultation. So I just hope that we keep that in mind. The requirement and expectation is a lot higher for a pharmacy that's providing outpatient pharmacy services. Also, just one more thing that I would like us to think about as we proceed and transition to a standard of care practice model. I do want to ask people's thoughts on maybe do we need to spell out what it shall include? I do think that that's a little bit of an outdated idea. I think that there are so many variables. Pharmacy practice has come so far. There are so much going on that are specialized, specialty pharmacies, specialty pharmaceuticals, injectables. There are just so much that I really don't think that it serves the best interest of patient. Just because you didn't say something about one thing is technically a violation. I think it's more important that the pharmacists really use their professional judgment to provide what is important for patient to know. So I think that's just my thoughts at this point in very early stages of discussion. I hope for us to really look forward to what is the practice of pharmacy while protecting and ensuring the pharmacy patients are entitled and that they're given a thorough consultation as best of their ability as possible. But remembering these so many barriers as Julie's amazing presentation. And lastly, Julie, wonderful presentation. Thank you. This was excellent. And I really appreciate your time on providing us with this presentation. So that's just my opening thoughts and some global comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next board member, I just wanted to announce that the state's earthquake drill, statewide earthquake drill is now taking place. So some of you may have devices that will interrupt you or the meeting. We'll just have to be patient with that. Thank you. Nicole Thibault?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Julie, for the presentation. That was great. Just wanted to make a couple comments. I love what President O said, especially about, finding better ways to do it and getting reimbursed for the time for the consultations. I think those would make a huge difference. Just a couple things I wanted to note. You can, in most cases, use pharmacy software to require the pharmacist to override for a consult. I know people don't always want to do that, but most software, that is an option. So the pharmacist actually has to go up and do an override before it's going to release that prescription if you're running into trouble. It's an interesting thing that we find a lot of patients are like, oh no, I don't need a consult. But when the pharmacist actually gets there and it's like, oh, I'm just going to go over a couple of things with you, they'll accept it. So it's like an ask versus if you just start doing it. But I think a lot of people have trouble with it not being a question and don't understand that people think you can just ask, do you want a consultation? And the way that the law is written, that doesn't work. It's just that you have to consult. So it takes a little bit of, I don't want to use the word aggression, but you do have to be kind of forceful to do it. And not everyone necessarily has the personality for that. So it takes a little bit of work. The one thing that I have always struggled with this is consultations happen constantly when you're outpatient, as President O mentioned. And it's very distracting. So if you are trying to check a prescription, you're in the middle of it and you get called away to do a consultation, are we increasing the risk for errors? My pharmacy always has overlap. So we have different people assigned to do consults and they are not going to be the ones doing like the waiters at that moment. But most pharmacies don't have that kind of overlap that they can do that. So I have no idea what the answer is, but I think there does need to be recognition that consultation could be contributing to errors in some cases. And both things are important. So I don't know what the balance is, but just something that we should acknowledge and discuss. The last thing I wanted to flag, and this is more maybe a question for staff, maybe something we can talk about later, is we're seeing more and more drugs that are filled in the retail space but are not dispensed to a patient. The example I can give you is the long-acting injectable drugs for PrEP. So certain insurances cover it as a pharmacy benefit. You have to fill it in a pharmacy, but you have to give it to the doctor's office. You cannot hand that drug to a patient. So what do you do about a consultation? There is no patient there to consult. And that creates a kind of a weird scenario. So might we look into exceptions to consultation or areas where it wouldn't be appropriate or it's not something you can do? So yeah, just wanted to flag that we're seeing more and more drugs falling into that category. I think my pharmacy dispenses about 4 different drugs that fall in that category, and we do hundreds of them every month. So what we do right now is we're in the same building, so we just walk and bring the drug and do the consult. But it's literally we're handing it to a nurse or a doctor who's also consulted the patient, so it's very awkward. So I think it would be helpful to get some kind of workaround for that situation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other comments from board members. Before we begin public comment, just a reminder that public comment is not a question and answer session, rather an opportunity to provide comments on the presentation or feedback on the opportunities to improve patient understanding of medication and particularly best practices to facilitate consultation. Julie, you're under no obligation to answer any questions. Is there anyone in Sacramento that wants to make a comment?
No comment in Sacramento.
Great, moderator, we're ready for public comment via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, we got a couple requests for public comment, so we'll go in order received. First, I have Stephen Gray. Stephen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. It's very important for the board to know where this came from and what the board has tried in the past that did or did not work. Consultation was first mandated by the federal government in 1990 for all Medicaid patients. That included Medi-Cal. The board decided that if it was good for them, it was good for all patients, so it mandated it by regulation. However, there was never a cost-benefit study on whether consultation made any difference or not, either at the federal or the state level. But since it was by regulation, Kaiser Permanente was allowed to do a study as long as it was in conjunction with the School of Pharmacy. It did a controlled study involving 3 medical centers over 18 months, and the results were very positive. It reduced hospitalization, emergency rooms, urgent care visits. It improved the outcomes. It reduced the cost of medical care substantially. As a result, Kaiser Permanente not only mandated it for all patients, but they opened a central fill pharmacy in 1996 to allow pharmacists more time at the local level to do patient consultation. Unfortunately, Kaiser Permanente has closed those. During COVID, consultation actually decreased. Mail order was emphasized. Pick up at the pharmacy, in other words, drive up to the space and a clerk will run it out. That was considered delivery, so consultation has been reduced. A part of the board actions on this, because pharmacies could only be $5,000, the board referred to the Attorney General 3 major chains that were fined under a separate law section, 17200 of the Business and Professions Code, and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. That did work. Those entities did change their practices on consultation for at least a significant period of time. So there are things that the board can do and should do, but consultation by a pharmacist is very important. I believe there are other things the board can do to improve this, but right now I think that consultation has been in decline, and the results in less quality of care and higher cost of care, again, have never been studied to find out when it was no longer being provided, what was the result. So I would encourage the board to have more discussion on this and go back to what was intended and evaluate how it could be done better. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Next, I have Sean Kim. And Sean, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Good morning, board. Thank you so much for the thoughtful presentation and discussion on duty to consult. This is Sean Kim from California Pharmacists Association. One of the personal reasons I chose pharmacy over other profession is because of the unique position for accessibility and affordability of the care, which includes the duty to consult our patients. This responsibility is the central why patients trust pharmacists as a frontline healthcare provider. The presentation effectively highlighted the barriers that we see in the practice today, and later we'll also discuss about AB 1286. These are real pressure and the impact ability to fully deliver the duty to consult. At the CPHA, we have been convening multi-stakeholder meetings with payers, employers, and CPDP and pharmacies to navigate the paradigm shift towards medical benefit billing and expanded pharmacy services. Through these discussions, a few needs to become clear. Number one is the bi-directional HIE, Health Information Exchange. Accurate and the timely care requires real-time access to patient health information. As CMS emphasized team-based and shared clinical decision-making model, interoperability is no longer an option, but it is a must. It is the key to the care coordination. And number two is incentivizing the clinical care beyond dispensing. The traditional community pharmacy business model based on the based on dispensing fee has been proven unstable, unsustainable due to multi-factors. It is one of the reasons why CPHA sponsors for SB 41. Another thing that we need to consider is the how to incentivize the direct patient care, as President O mentioned, such as counseling, prescribing, monitoring. These could be captured with E&M Co's capitation model or even value-based model, which are already happening for some of the pharmacies in California. Without proper reimbursement, pharmacies will continue to struggle to fulfill their duty to consult at the level pharmacy patients deserves. As conversation about pharmacies evolving standard of care move forward, it is critical to that the duty to consult is reinforced and with policies and reimbursement model that reflects the value pharmacist brings to the patient outcomes. CPHA remains committed to working with DHCS on AB 1114, pharmacy services, and implementation of with DMHC on AB 317, pharmacist reimbursement, to ensure that pharmacists can consistently
10 seconds.
provide patients with timely, affordable, and accessible care. Thank you so much for opportunity to provide the comments.
All right, this is the moderator. Next, I have Chasney Johnson. And Chasney, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hello, my name is Chasney Johnson, Pharmacy Technician 106559, located in Oceanside, California. Thank you, Ms. Julie, for this presentation. Patient consultations are very important. When visiting Los Angeles pharmacies and using neighborhood pharmacies, I feel like pharmacy technicians don't create a conversation to even pick up a prescription. Even ask patients if they have any concerns and would like to talk to a pharmacist. I'm not hearing the "Welcome to CVS. My name is Chasney. How may I assist you today?" Sometimes they are just waiting for the patient to start the conversation. Then when you finally get to the consultation window, it's just a high wall or a high counter that the pharmacist is talking over. Being a pharmacy technician and receiving this type of care with the same pharmacy technicians working each day makes it seem like the manager of the operations is not trying to pursue greatness within their work environment. We are not just handling prescribed medications to members of the public. We want to show we are actually caring about someone's life, and that's why we all have these pharmacy licenses to project that. Thank you for letting me participate in today's meeting. Have a great day.
All right, this is the moderator. And just to confirm, we are not taking repeat requests for public comment, correct?
No, we are not.
All right.
I don't remember. Did Steve comment initially? I think he did, yes.
All right, in that case, we have no further requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. I now bring the discussion back to members. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss further or to highlight? If not, I know we will continue this conversation at a full board meeting, and I look forward to that conversation. Julie, thank you again for your presentation. It was certainly a great overview for us to continue to talk about this important topic. Moving on to agenda item 6, discussion of Hospital Pharmacy and Business and Professions Code 4113.1, medication error reporting, including possible action to make recommendation to the board regarding proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title 16, 1710. Members, as you may recall, the Institute for Safe Medication Practices was approved by the board as the entity to receive and review medication error reports under BPC section 4113.1. The board refers to the medication error reporting under this section as California Medication Error Reporting, CAMER, C-A-M-E-R program. Subdivision C of this section defines community pharmacy for the purposes of this section to include any pharmacy that dispenses medications to an outpatient, but it does not include, does not include facilities of the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Existing regulation in Title 16, Section 1710, establishes the conditions and set forth volume limits which a hospital pharmacy may furnish drugs to outpatients or employees of the hospital or walk-in customers. I am familiar with hospitals that provide higher volumes of outpatient prescriptions and thus have a separate community pharmacy license for outpatient prescriptions. There is also existing requirements that already apply to hospitals under Health and Safety Code, including requirements to report adverse events and adopt formal plan to eliminate substantially reduced medication-related errors. The board has received comments asking for clarity on whether hospital pharmacies are also required to register and report to CAMR. I believe it is the policy of the board that if a hospital pharmacy dispenses volumes to outpatients that is within its limits set forth in CCR 1710, the hospital is not required to report medication errors through the CAMER program. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to call it CAMER or CAMER, so I'll probably go back and forth. This policy, which we discussed at previous committee and board meetings, was in fact, I believe, the board's intent. Staff is requesting that the committee confirm the board's policy and, if appropriate, consider a change in the regulatory text of 1710 to provide clarity to the regulated public that the term community pharmacy, as defined in section 4113.1, does not include hospital pharmacies operating consistent with subdivision A of 1710. So that means hospitals that have very limited outpatient dispensing. Attachment 4 includes draft regulation for our consideration. Members, I've had an opportunity to review the draft regulation language and believe it represents our current board policy. I'm interested in your thoughts on the language, and after discussion, should the board believe that the regulatory language is ready for consideration and approval by the board, the committee may refer draft language to the full board. A motion is not necessary to refer this language. Members, I'm open to your comments.
Hi, Chair Serpai, this is Song. I am supportive of this language. However, I do like to ask our staff to kind of have more understanding as inspectors inspect HSPs to see if this is actually a practice that they do perform, like if they do dispense, and that if they can just at least get some sort of data or understanding if, because hospitals, you guys dispense a lot, so even 1% could be a lot in my naive mind. So I just like to kind of have some understanding of that in the future. But I'm supportive of the regulation text as proposed.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Let's move to public comment on the draft regulation language.
I think Renee had her hand raised. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Renee.
That's okay. I was a little late. No, I wanted to. I thank you. I think that's a great comment, President O. I know that it is true. Hospitals can have a lot of dispenses, right? So what that looks like can probably really vary. Although I do appreciate the clarity in this for the exemption, but I'll be curious to see what kind of comments we get.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Thank you both. Let's move on to public comment on the draft regulation language. Is there anyone in Sacramento with comments?
No, there is not.
Thank you. Moderator, we're ready for public comment via WebEx.
All right, this is a moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I have a request from Stephen Gray. Stephen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. In addition to the change, I suggest a change that will add clarity. The regulation says that do not exceed 1% of the pharmacy's prescriptions. That is misleading. 1% of what? Prescriptions are dispensing directly to a patient. A lot of hospitals say, no, this is also includes 1% of the orders that are distributed to the floors for patient administration. So, just clarity about 1% of what would help. Also, some pharmacies that are doing this believe that they are exempt from consultation, right? Remain back to the previous discussion. But a hospital that has thousands of employees and is in a popular area can get a lot of walk-in prescriptions. So you need to clarify that those patients are not exempt from consultation. Another way to ensure consultation is to do what other boards of pharmacy have done for decades. They require documentation that consultation was done and identification of the pharmacist that was responsible for doing the documentation. There is a wrong assumption that the pharmacist that filled the prescription was the one that was supposed to do the consultation. Without required documentation, there's no way to assess responsibility, and that needs to be corrected. Also, the courts do not recognize at the appellate level the requirement in a civil case for consultation to be done. The judge in a recent case basically dismissed an arbitration completely because as a judge, he had know that there is nothing at the appellate level in California that recognize a civil responsibility to do consultation. And as long as these arbitration cases or lawsuits are settled at a lower level, you're never going to get that. So something needs to be done on that requirement also. Thank you very much for this comment period.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Thank you, members. Just to clarify, in my original comments, I had talked about I had worked in a hospital pharmacy that had a significant outpatient, more than one hospital pharmacy that had a significant outpatient, and they had a second license. And I think that's something that's very common, but we certainly can discuss that more. That certainly is under 4113.1. Today, we're looking at regulatory changes for 1710. And board members, do you have any comments about 1710? Okay. Based on what appears to be a consensus of the committee, I believe it's appropriate for the committee to refer this draft language to the full board for consideration and possible action. Thank you. Next item is item 7, discussion and possible action to make recommendations to the board regarding updates to frequently asked questions related to Assembly Bill 1286. Members, you may recall as a part of our discussion on the implementation of Assembly Bill 1286, given the comprehensive nature of the measure, board staff developed frequently asked questions or FAQs. The FAQs were most recently updated and approved by the board during the June 2025 board meeting. Given the passage of the board sunset bill, Assembly Bill 1503, and other recent developments, the board have now proposed additional updates to the FAQs to provide further clarity on certain topics, including the California Medication Error Reporting Program, pharmacy technicians' expended duties, unprofessional conduct, surgical clinic requirements. Attachment 5 of the FAQs incorporate the proposed updates. I've had an opportunity to review the updates and believe that they are comprehensive and appropriate. I'd like to highlight a few of the changes. Following our discussion on hospital pharmacy that we just had, question 8 is proposed to update the clarity that the hospital pharmacy dispensing of volume to outpatients within its set limits. The hospital is not required to report medication errors to CAMER. Number 9 also suggests clarity to the PHE license types, like an infusion center pharmacy or an entity that furnishes investigational drugs. Those are subject to CMAR reporting. Question 11 was updated to reflect updates to BPC 4113.1, which clarify that non-resident pharmacies are only required to report medication errors to CMAER related to prescriptions dispensed to California patients. This was clarified in AB 1503, the board's sunset bill, that was recently signed by the governor and becomes effective in January of 2026. Question 21 and 22 were updated to reflect updates to BPC section 4115 that were also in AB 1503 regarding expanded technician duties. Question 26 was added to document the effective date of January 1st, 2026, in which AB 1503 requires chain pharmacies to post a notice for pharmacy personnel that provides information on how to file a complaint with the board. Question 27 was updated to let the regulatory public know where surgical self-assessment forms are available on the board's website. And finally, question 30 was updated to give an email address to licensees for the surgical self-assessment form to the board. Members, do you have any questions on the draft document and suggested updates? I would also welcome a motion for approval if you think such action is appropriate. A possible motion is on the screen. Members, I saw Dr. O's hand went up quite early.
Thank you, Chair Serpa. I appreciate this work and thank you. I do global comment. I think that we do need to figure out a little bit some ways to disseminate all this. There's a lot of information. There are AB 1286 and then AB 1503. I think that we'll be working with our staff in hopefully consolidating some FAQs and updating and I don't want to say discarding, but deleting some FAQs that are not relevant. So that's my global comment. In terms of just the specificity, I would like to add for question 14, can we please update question 14 and 15? Because also AB 1503 did amend the sections related to the staffing, and I think it is extremely important for us to highlight that. So I do like to update the 14 and 15 to reflect the changes in AB 1503, which PICs now must make staffing decisions effective January 1st of 2026. And that maybe we can also highlight the unprofessional conduct in that as well, which I think was asked in further questions, so maybe not, but I do think that that question answer can be updated to reflect the important role PICs play and how important it is for PICs to not determine staffing level at the pharmacies, which is very exciting for me. Been working on this for so long, since 2020. 17, I think, is also can be updated. Is the store management required to take action based on my report? I think that AB 1503 also had updates on this. But again, closing comment for me is that it is so much information that I do think that anyone who's not following this every day may struggle to really follow along. And so we really need to figure out some global ways to disseminate this information. Obviously, we're going to do the script article, but we really need to work on updating our websites, cutting out things that are outdated, and somehow moving forward, cutting those out, and also updating all this information, because this is a monumental change in pharmacy law, as all of you know. This is such a groundbreaking change. So I think this just completely changes the way that pharmacist practices has been governed in the inception of pharmacy. So pharmacist practice. So I think it's important for us to really kind of look at how best to provide the updates and all these information to the regulated public. And so with that, I would like to make a motion, but I'm going to wait for members to say their piece before I do. So I'm going to hold off.
Okay, thank you. And then in the motion include with the updates to 14, 15, and 17, because we certainly can bring those updates to the full board meeting. Members, any other comments before President O makes the motion? Looks like it's up to you, Sung.
Okay, well, I guess I'll make a motion with consistency with the committee's discussion to recommend approval of the updates to FAQs consistent with the discussion and updating question 14, 15, 17.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Nicole. Oh, Go ahead,
Oh,
Renee.
sorry. Go ahead.
I think Renee seconded it. With the motion and second on the floor, I now open for public discussion on the draft FAQs. Are there any comments in Sacramento?
No.
Okay, moderator, we're ready for public comments for individuals participating via WebEx.
This is the moderator. If members of the public on WebEx would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and it looks like we do have a request from Sean Kim. And Sean, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Good morning again. Sean Kim from California Pharmacists Association. We fully support updating AB 1286 FAQs as we have been supporting ISMP for pilot programs and integration of the program. Clear, concise guidance will help licensees operationalize the CAMER reporting and regarding technicians' roles, and what we have also changed through AB 1503 standard of care model takes hold. CPHA is committed to broad dissemination and the practical implementation for all these legislative changes. It is huge, as President O mentioned. This will requires a lot of time to disseminate and educate the public, but we'll continue to integrate the finalized FAQ on our website, as well as continuing education. Hopefully we can host one with ISMP subject matter experts to talk about AB 1286 program, and also continue to talk about the changes with AB 1503. So thank you so much for focusing on this changes, and we really appreciate the boards, and we look forward to collaborate even further in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Thank you. I'm now ready to take a roll call vote unless you have additional comments. Okay, let's start with the vote. We're on the motion as posted. Renee Barker.
Yes.
Jeff Hughes.
Yes.
Sung Oh.
Yes.
Ricardo Sanchez.
Yes.
Nicole Tebow.
Yes.
And I vote yes, motion passes. Thank you. Members, we've now been meeting for almost 2 hours. We have a couple of choices. We have one member who will be leaving us in the next half hour, and we still will have a quorum, but we have no further votes. Would you prefer to have a 15-minute break now, or to continue on? It may be another half hour, 45 minutes. What's your preference, members?
I do need a little quick break.
I
Okay.
need a break. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll take a 15-minute break, and we'll get together again at what's it going to be? 11:08. Is that 15 minutes? Yeah. Let's do 11:10 just to make it nice and even. We'll get together at 11:10 and continue with the rest of the agenda. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Let me take a quick roll call to make sure everyone is back. Renee Barker. He'll be back momentarily, I'm sure. Jeff Hughes.
Public members present.
Sung Oh.
Present.
Ricardo Sanchez.
Present.
Nicole Tebow.
Present.
Renee Barker.
Present.
Great, we're all back. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8. Discussion and consideration of enrolled or recently signed legislation impacting the practice of pharmacy. Members, as we do at our fall meeting each year, today we will be discussing enrolled legislation that was either signed or vetoed by the governor. For everyone's information, AB 1503 implementation recommendations has been discussed at the licensing committee yesterday. It says will be, but of course that meeting was yesterday. For the bills discussed today, you will note that in the meeting material, staff are offering recommendations on implementation activities or other recommendations. Additionally, there are 3 bills that were vetoed by the governor after the release of the committee meeting agenda and materials. I will identify those bills as we move through the discussion of each bill. For these bills, due to the veto, the staff's recommended implementation activities are no longer applicable. The first measure for our discussion is Assembly Bill 82, related to legally protected healthcare activities. I noted that this bill was amended to its current version before the June board meeting, and neither the committee nor the board have previously considered this bill. The bill expands the address confidentiality program to gender-affirming healthcare provider, employee, or volunteer who face threats of violence or harassment from public because of their affiliation with a gender-affirming healthcare service facility. The bill also prohibits prescription for or the dispensing of testosterone or I should know how to say this, mifepristone from being reported to the Department of Justice cures or contractor. This measure was signed and chaptered on October 13th, 2025. I agree with the implementation activities identified by the staff are appropriate. Members, do you have any comments on AB 82 and the implementation activities?
Hey Maria, it's Nicole. I agree with the recommendations. Just wanted to highlight how important this bill is for people who provide gender affirming care. Because of the actions of the current administration, we're seeing a lot of people drop out of providing gender affirming and reproductive care, to the point that there's probably going to be a lot less providers in the state as a whole. Children's Hospital completely ended their gender affirming care program for youth. So I think we should do everything we can to support this bill and get the word out that this exists, so that hopefully additional people do not stop providing the care.
Thank you. Any other comment before we go on to public comment? So we're ready for public comment on AB 82. Is there anyone in Sacramento to provide comment?
There's no one in Sacramento at this time.
Okay, thank you. Moderator, we're ready for public comment for participation via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their request. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Our next measure for discussion is AB 144, which authorizes pharmacists to independently initiate and administer immunizations that as of January 1st, 2025, have federal ACIP recommendation or are recommended by the California Department of Public Health. I note that this bill was amended to its current version in September, and neither the committee nor the board has previously considered this bill. This measure was signed and chaptered on September 17th, 2025. Additionally, a pharmacy alert was sent to licensees on September 18th. I agree with the implementation activities identified by the staff that are appropriate. Members, do you have any comments on AB 144 and the implementation activities? Seeing none, we're ready for public comment. No one's in Sacramento, so we'll go to public comment via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and it looks like we do have a request from Sean Kim. Sean, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you, board. I believe this is the comment that I previously made from another meeting, and thank you so much for working on AB 144 implementation together. This is Sean Kim from CPHA. There was a care gap regarding vaccination, immunization because of the two different recommendations from entities. We don't need to preach to the choir, but I believe the care gap has been breached. And thank you so much for the board and CDPH and all other stakeholders working on this bill together. We are continuously working to provide the care for the all the patients who are in need. There were some gaps regarding BFC programs or even TRICARE. However, now it is much more available for the accessibility of the care. But we'll continue to monitor as a CPHA and hope to continue to collaborate on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion by members? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next measure, AB 260, related to sexual and reproductive health care and confidentiality of treatment. I note that this bill was amended to its current version just before the June board meeting, and neither the committee nor the board has had an opportunity to previously consider this bill. The measure was signed and chaptered on September 26, 2025. I agree with the implementation activities identified by the staff are appropriate. Members, do you have any comments on AB 260 or the implementation activities?
Hi, Chair Serpa. This is Nicole again. Just want to echo what I said on AB 82, that this is really important given the current state of affairs right now, to allow patients to maintain access to reproductive health care.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for public comment. I still, no one in Sacramento. So moderator, we're ready for public comment via WebEx.
This is the moderator. For members of the public on WebEx, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon. Or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Our next measure for discussion is AB 309, related to hypodermic needles and syringes. The measure was signed and chaptered on October 13th, 2025. I agree with the implementation activities identified by staff are appropriate. Members, do you have any comments on AB 309 and the implementation activities?
Hi, Chair Serpa. I just have a comment that, with the enactment of AB 1503, that essentially all pharmacists may be able to issue a way for us to furnish prescribed hypodermic needles and syringes as well. So I think this is great, but also now there's way more opportunity for pharmacists to be able to assist patients in providing needles and syringes.
Great, thank you. Any more member comments? Seeing none, we're ready for public comment on AB 309. Let's move on directly to WebEx. There's no one in Sacramento. Moderator?
This is the moderator. For members of the public on WebEx, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raised hand icon. Or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their request. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Moving on, our next measure for discussion is AB 447. This bill allows prescribers to dispense the unused portion of a dangerous drug as defined, excluding controlled substances, that the hospital pharmacy acquired to emergency room patients upon discharge, provided it is necessary to continue treatment. Such drugs must have been administered from a single patient use multi-dose packaging, like an inhaler or an eye drop, and can be self-administered by the patient. They also must be fully labeled as a prescription. This measure also makes changes to certain AUD licensure in hospital emergency rooms. The measure was signed and chaptered on October 6, 2025. I agree that the implementation activities are identified by staff are appropriate. Members, do you have any comments on AB 447 or the implementation activities? Okay, seeing none, we're ready for public comment. No one in Sacramento, so moderator, we're ready for public comment via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their request. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Moving on, our next measure is AB 742, which relates to applicants who are descendants of slaves in the expedited application process. This measure was vetoed by the governor on October 13th, 2025. So we have no discussion, it was vetoed. The next measure is discussion on Senate Bill 40, which relates to healthcare coverage and cost restrictions for insulin. The measure was signed and chaptered on October 13th, 2025. I agree with the implementation activities identified by staff that are appropriate. Members, do you have any comments on SB 40 or the implementation activities?
Hey Maria, this is Nicole. I just wanted to flag for our federally qualified health centers that there is an executive order related to the price of insulin and epinephrine that federally qualified health centers have to follow, which is separate from this bill, but it has a lot of the same like price points and different things. I wanted just to flag for people that you have to do both, not just this isn't the same as the executive order. So the clinics are going to have to do both of those pieces. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do you suggest that that be included in the dissemination of materials that we talk about the executive order also?
I think that would be really helpful. And if the staff has any questions, if they want to reach out to me, I can explain a little bit more who it applies to and what the executive order is.
Okay, so that'll be part of the education that goes forward for SB 40. Any other comments by members? Okay, I think we're ready for public comment. Seeing none in Sacramento, moderator, we're ready for public comment via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Moving on, the next measure for discussion is SB 41, which relates to pharmacy benefit managers. This measure was signed and chaptered on October 11th, 2025. I agree that the implementation activities identified by staff are appropriate. Members, do you have any comments on SB 41 or the implementation activities?
Chair Serpa, I'm really happy that this bill has passed and signed. It is really important. There are some provisions in there that I do want us to see if there's a way for us to work with the MHC in providing more information and understanding that they are separate entities, but I do think that we need to probably have some close relationships to learn further and to be able to help our regulated public know the rights of what they can ask for as the more information is released.
Okay. We'll have to make sure that that's included in the implementation activities, that we have more communication and dissemination of information, and add that to the implementation activities. Is that what you're asking for, President O?
That would be really good. Yes, I think that there's a lot of information in there, and it's not as, there's a lot, and our pharmacy professionals hopefully will realize what is their, what they can do and how they can do it, and it's up to DMHC. But I think obviously they look to us in many ways first. So I think it's important, just like how we did with our hypodermic needles, Cal Recycle and that bill. I think even though they're the driver, we have a lot of, information to disseminate. So this is something we hope to work. I hope we work with DMHC closely in providing information.
Great, thank you. Members, any other comments? Seeing none, we're ready for public comment. No one in Sacramento. Moderator, we're ready for public comment via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I have a couple requests. First, I have Stephen Gray. Stephen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you very much. I completely agree with President O's recommendation that this needs to be information disseminated to pharmacists and possibly others, and not only included in the script, but also included in the pharmacy law book. There's a lot of material that is pertinent to pharmacy, and it never gets read by pharmacists, pharmacy law instructors, and others unless it's in the pharmacy law book. So maybe a request could be made to the publisher to also include at least selected items in the pharmacy law book. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Next, I have Sean Kim. And Sean, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak with a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you. Sean Kim from California Pharmacists Association. We heartily support the board's education plan for SB 41 and in collaboration with DMHC. SB 41 builds onto the last year's SB 966. Thank you everyone who advocated and educated the general public and engaged legislators and showed up to the press conferences. SB 41 prohibits PBM's unfair practice, and it'll be overseen by DMHC pursuant to AB 116. That was the budget trailer bill as well. This PBM reform benefits not only community-based pharmacies, but also entire California healthcare system interprofessionally and all across the practice setting. So this is very, very important and very monumental. These protections will improve access, transparency, and patient-centered care. CPHA will continue to work with DMHC as we have had multiple meetings with them regarding licensing and also how to collect data collections as well as analysis through HCI. So we'd love to work with Board of Pharmacy to collaborate on this matter as well and continue to public education. We appreciate board's full support on this, and thank you so much for your leadership and look forward to coordinate the proper implementation for SB 41. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Thank you. Members, any further discussion? Okay, moving on to SB 306, which pertains to prior authorizations for healthcare coverage. This bill requires healthcare service plans and insurers to temporarily exempt certain services from requiring prior authorization if 90% or more of the requests of those services were approved in the previous calendar year. This measure was signed and chaptered on October 6, 2025. I agree with the implementation activities identified staff. Right. Sorry about that. My pages got mixed up here. Members, do you have any comments on SB 306 or the implementation activities?
Hi, Chair Serpa, this is Renee Barker, and unfortunately I have to leave the meeting, so apologies for everyone I can't stay to the end, but thank you all for the great discussion. Look forward to seeing you all at the full board meeting.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for announcing.
Bye-bye.
Hey, members, do you have any questions or comments on SB 306 and the implementation activities?
Chair Serpa, just to state the obvious, I'm really happy for this bill, and there are just so much abuse by the insurances, unfortunately, in requiring prior authorizations for such drugs, like an inhalers for babies. They cannot use a powder-based inhalers, but the insurance will say that you must try the powder-based inhalers. And so a lot of children have to go through this delayed in therapies for their asthmas. There's so much that I think hopefully this will fix. I'm really optimistic. I hope that this will be again, important information for pharmacists and how to provide the patient's rights. A lot of times, unfortunately, the PBMs do abuse prior authorizations for cost savings. And I'm hoping that this will be a good steps in really providing life-saving medications to many of our patients.
Thank you. Any other comments from members before we go to public comment? Okay. I see there's no one in Sacramento, so we're ready for public comment from individuals via WebEx for SB 306.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our next measure. It's SB 418, which pertains to healthcare coverage of prescription hormone therapy. I note that this bill was amended to its current version after the June meeting, and neither the committee nor the board had previously considered this bill. This bill requires healthcare service plans and insurers to cover up to 12-month supply of FDA-approved prescription hormone therapy and related supplies for self-administration. It also establishes protections against discrimination in healthcare programs and health programs that receive federal or state funding. This measure was vetoed by the governor on October 13th, 2025. The next measure that we'll discuss is SB 470, which relates to the teleconferencing under Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. This measure was signed and chaptered by the governor on October 1st, 2025. I agree with the implementation activities identified by the staff. Members, do you have any comments on SB 470 and the implementation activities?
Hi, Chair
Steve?
Serpa.
Oh, go
Just
ahead.
wanted to say that I'm grateful that they made these changes, and it's a great step for accessibility for board members to be able to attend.
Thank you. Seeing no other comment, we're ready for public comment. There's no one in Sacramento, so moderator, we're ready for public comment via WebEx on SB 470.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. Oh, and we do have a request from Stephen Gray. Stephen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you very much. I do believe that it's important for the Board of Pharmacy to clarify how the provisions of that law, the whole law, including what has changed, apply to committee meetings and other non-full board meetings of the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Board members, do you have any further comments? Okay, moving on. Next measure is SB 497, which regulates legally protected healthcare activities. This measure was signed and chaptered on October 13th, 2025. I agree that the implementation activities identified by staff are appropriate. Members, do you have any comments on SB 497 or the implementation activities?
Hi, Maria. It's Nicole. I wanted to say that I think it would be helpful if the board, I don't know if it's its own FAQ or if it's something, could do something around what information pharmacists are required to provide to things like law enforcement, given the current situations. I think there's a lot of confusion for pharmacists. If ICE shows up, if law enforcement asks you for something, under what conditions you should and should not provide that. I also wanted to flag slightly problematic are some of the software that pharmacies have, as well as clinics and hospitals that will share records across state lines. And some of these are, obviously, if you're in a big chain pharmacy, you can see them, but also in things like Epic, the software, you can see data if a patient was seen at a completely different organization. So just want to flag that there needs to be awareness when you are putting things in, and we need to be conscientious of what we are adding to health records for patient safety.
Okay, thank you. I think that's covered in the implementation activities, but we certainly can make sure the staff do talk about maybe some examples in the sharing of the changes in the script, when there's an article in the script, and sharing the annual changes of the pharmacy law, that they provide examples. I think that would be great.
Yeah, and if they could provide not just to the changes from this one, but just kind of the whole general scenario. I think some people are missing like when you should answer and provide information and when not just related to this bill, but kind of more generally, I think would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any members, any other comments? Right one. That's 497. I think we're ready for public comment, and seeing no one in Sacramento. Moderator, we're ready for public comment for individuals participating via WebEx for SB 497.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio only participant, you can press *3 on your device. And I have a request from Stephen Gray. Stephen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you. I completely agree with Nicole's recommendation to help pharmacies owners and pharmacists understand about the access to patient information. Pharmacy is rather unique in California and even unique across the country, that quote, authorized officers of the law are allowed to get information, to get into a pharmacy during normal business hours without requiring a subpoena, a warrant, or even patient permission to get access to information. So a lot of pharmacies are advised by their attorneys otherwise, and then it gets really confusing. Those access to information in medical offices and hospitals are more restricted, but pharmacy, any quote authorized officer of the law can gain access real easily. So really needs to be an elaboration in some form of communication on what that means for pharmacies, and especially in this new law. For an example, is a federal officer an authorized officer of the law under that provision of California law? In the past, we've had opinions from the Board of Pharmacy that yes, for an example, the DEA is, but what about other federal officers? So I think this really needs some discussion and some education from the Board of Pharmacy to our, for the benefit of the privacy of our patients, which is the intent of the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Next, I have Isaac. Isaac, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. I'd like to second that. I feel like there's going to be a lot of confusion, and it would greatly benefit from an FAQ with good examples and something that's easily retrievable for pharmacists, so they have a clear, because I feel like it puts them in a very difficult situation for lawsuits. It could be very, financially painful for if they make the wrong move one way or the other. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Members, any further discussion on this topic? Okay, moving on, SB 568, which relates to epinephrine delivery systems at schools and child care programs. I note that neither the committee nor the board had previously considered this bill. This bill expands the authority for pharmacies to provide broader range of epinephrine delivery devices to local educational agencies, including school districts, county offices of education, and charter schools, under existing safety and training requirements. This measure was signed and chaptered on October 3rd, 2025. I agree with the implementation activities identified by staff. Members, do you have any comments on SB 568 and the implementation activities? Seeing none, I think we're ready for public comment. There's no one in Sacramento, so moderator, we're ready for public comment for those participating via WebEx on SB 568.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access these features and submit their requests. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. The final measure that was on the agenda was SB 641, which relates to waivers and exemptions during state of emergency. This measure was vetoed on October 13th, 2025. That completes our discussion about legislation. Next is agenda item 11, discussion of enforcement statistics. The meeting materials included a summary of enforcement statistics for the first 3 months of fiscal year 2025-26. During the first 3 months of this fiscal year, the board initiated 914 complaints and closed 747 investigations. As of September 30th, 2025, the board has 1,736 field investigations pending. The materials provide a breakdown of the average time frame for the various stages of the field investigation process. Members, any comments or thoughts on the enforcement statistics provided? Seeing none, we're ready for public comment. No one's in Sacramento, so moderator, we're ready for public comment for individuals participating via WebEx.
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. Looks like we have a request from Stephen Gray. Stephen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Thank you very much. It may be in the statistics. It's a little hard for me to sort out exactly all the times that this may come up. But given the board's new enforcement policy direction that was supported by AB 1503, I think it would be very important to add very clearly which enforcement actions were related to violations of the standard of care. So I don't know how that would be displayed, but if you're going to go forward with that, and if pharmacists are going to take it seriously, and we need to see the trends after this. So if you could adjust your statistics to accommodate anything, whether it be a citation, an accusation, or anything else related to what you normally report, standard of care would now be very important to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my only comment to that would be, I think and hope that would be part of the discussion of the implementation activities that we will be having at the full board meeting on AB 1503, but that's a very good comment, Dr. Gray. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you. Members, any further discussion about the enforcement statistics? Okay, seeing none. The last item on the agenda is future meeting dates, and before we adjourn today, I'd like to thank everyone for your time and participation. Our next meeting is currently scheduled for January 7th, 2026. Please monitor the board's website for updates. And I invite all of you to also attend the full board meeting coming up in November. Thank you all. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.